Okay, kids, so you might want to pause this video in a moment and jot down these things so that way you can have it all in front of you. We're going to be talking about slope today. I'm sure you guys have talked about slope before. Slope, most people know it as rise over run, okay? It's the change in y over change in x. So it's the rate of change. All these things up here on the top are the same. And for some reason, I don't know why, but slope is represented by the lowercase m. But all these things up here mean slope, okay? Change in y over change in x. There are four kinds of ways that we're going to calculate slope: from a table, from a graph, from a story. We're going to do all three of those today. And then there's also one from points, which we'll talk about in the next video, in the next lesson, okay? So from a table, to find, it's not always going to say x and y, but the first column of a table is always the x column. And the second column is always the y column. So remember, it's change in y over change in x. So we have to put this change on top of this change. So we want to look at the actual change from 0 to 16. That's an addition of 16. From 0 to 2, that's 2. So we put the change in y. Remember, this is the y over here on the right. 16 over 2 would give us a slope of 8. And this would be 8 over 1, but we would just write 8. And remember, this is pay, so this is probably like $8 per hour. Because remember, the second thing is what goes on top. Now, I want you to realize it doesn't matter which 2 points we looked at, okay? From 3 to 7 is adding a 4. 24 to 56 means we added 32. 32 over 4 is also 8. We didn't even have to look at points that were consecutive. We could have gone from 0, 0 to 7, 56. We would have had a change of 7 over a change of 56. So it would still be 8. Okay? So that's from a table. You want to do these. These are called the carets out on the side. You want to do the carets, and then just make sure you put this number over this number to find the slope. Okay, seeing that I'm up here at the top of this page, from a story, now this can be a little bit harder, but notice how the last thing in this line up top is independent change. The first thing that you come to in a table is always independent. The second thing is dependent. The second thing is dependent on the first thing. So the independent, remember I said that's the first thing, that's always x. So you have to figure out what thing's independent. Well, in this case here, we're talking about two things. We're talking about Tom. Tom's growing, his height is changing over time. Well, time is always independent. You can't stop time. It doesn't stop for anything. And look, if we go from early let's say this was January 1st, New Year's Day 2018, to December 31st, 2020, that's actually 3 years, right? Because you went through 2018, 2019, and 2020. So the time period that we're talking about here is 3 years. Time is always independent. That goes on the bottom. His height changed by 1 foot. So there's your slope. That's all it's to it. Okay, this next one's big deal. Okay, slope from a graph. Let's do the blue one first. Always start with the point furthest to the left. Okay? So let's do the blue slope. That means I have to start with this point that's furthest to the left. Now, remember the top number is the rise. That's how far up or down you go. To get from here to here, you have to go up 1. So my upper number is 1 because my rise was 1. And then I went over 1, 2, 3, 4. So my slope is 1/4. That's all it's to it. Now, the red one, again, we want to start with the point that's furthest to the left. That will be this point. Now to get from here to here, we have to go down. We have to go down 2. Because we went down, my top number is negative. And then we have to go over 1. Now we don't leave a slope as negative 2 over 1. We just reduce it to negative 2. But remember, there is that invisible 1 underneath it. Notice how this red line is falling from left to right. A falling line has a negative slope. The blue line is rising from left to right. A blue line has a positive slope. A rising line has a positive slope. All right? So that's it for the first introductory lesson. There's 2 more videos that go with this, but they'll be on a separate video file. They'll be short.